Y'all need a hand with that engine. Ladies? The voice rolled low and calm through the thunder, cutting through the downpour like it belonged to the storm itself. Marcus Brown stepped out of his battered Honda Civic, rain instantly soaking through the thin fabric of his oil-stained jacket. His boots splashed against the wet asphalt as he approached the stalled black Mercedes. Two young women turned toward him. Startled, one was gripping her phone, still searching for a signal. The other wiped rain and mascara from her face. They couldn't have been more than 20, huddled beneath the glow of hazard lights that blinked like distress signals in the dark. "We've been stuck almost an hour," the one closest to the hood said, her voice small under the hammering rain. "Our phones died," the other added. "Nobody stopped. Until you." Marcus looked at the sleek car, then back at their pale, worried faces. He exhaled through his nose, glanced at the sky as thunder cracked like bones above. He should have kept driving. He had every reason to. Just 3 hours ago, his ex had slammed the door in his face. Again. "You think you can raise her?" Lena Carter had hissed, her makeup flawless, her heels clicking like gunfire on the porch of her new condo. "Working in a garage? Delivering fried chicken at night? Come on, Marcus. She needs more than bedtime stories and broken-down Toyotas." Zara had clung to his leg, crying, not wanting to go. Lena had tried to yank her away. "Don't touch her like that," Marcus had growled, stepping between them. "We agreed, until court decides. She stays with me." And Lena had laughed, bitter. "We both know how this ends. I have a real lawyer. You have calluses, writing to mine." He'd stood there, jaw clenched. As she drove off in her Lexus, Zara had stared out the back window until they were gone. That's why he was doing double shifts, fixing transmissions at the garage until 5, running delivery routes till midnight, saving receipts, logging every hour, scraping together evidence that love and sacrifice could outweigh a paycheck. That's why he should have kept driving. But he didn't. "Pop the hood," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let me take a look." To Wildine. The girl nodded quickly and did as asked. Marcus leaned in, scanning the engine under the flickering light. Rain ran into his eyes. It didn't take long. "Battery's dead," he said. "Terminals are corroded. Y'all aren't going anywhere tonight unless someone jumps you, or you call a tow." The C1's Okana. They looked at each other, worry crossing their faces. "We could call our dad, but he's probably busy." The other finished quietly. "He's always busy." "Widzon." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Not unkindly. "Busy don't mean unreachable. He know y'all out here?" She shook her head. "He thinks we're still at school. He doesn't really check in." "One." He recognized that ache in their voices. He heard it every time Zara asked, "Why can't mommy stay for my play?" "All right," Marcus said with a sigh. "There's a motel 10 minutes down the road. Ain't fancy, but it's dry. I'll give y'all a ride." "It's not a stay." The girls hesitated. "You'd do that?" Marcus shrugged, already heading back to his car. "Can't leave you standin' in the rain, like abandoned puppies. Come on." 0V. They grabbed their bags, designer duffels that probably cost more than his car, and followed him. Inside the Civic, the heat barely worked, and the upholstery smelled like oil and plastic. But the girls didn't complain. "I'm Sophie," said the one in the passenger seat. "That's Maya. It's Stu." "Marcus," he said simply. As they pulled onto the slick road, Maya leaned forward. "Thanks again for stopping." End quote. "Most people don't tang. I haven't." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "Got a daughter. She's 7. If she were stuck out here like y'all, I'd want someone to stop." "Aston." "What's her name?" Sophie asked. "Zara." "We canna do. That's pretty. We're gone." There was a pause. Then Maya asked, "Do you get to see her often?" Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Every chance I get," he said slowly. "But that might not last." Age. He didn't mean to say it, but the weight of it had built up all day. "Her mama wants full custody. Says I ain't stable. That I work too much." I got 3 days till we stand before a judge. 18s. Sophie's voice softened. That's awful. It's the system, Marcus muttered. I'm doing what I can, saving every penny. I'm at school events, doctor's visits, tuck her in every night. But it ain't about that. Not to them. It's about who drives what car. Related. Maya leaned forward, voice gentle. Our dad has money. Too much of it. But he barely talks to us unless it's about appearances. We'd trade all of it just to eat dinner with him, without him checking emails. A.T. Marcus exhaled through his nose. Money don't raise kids. Time does. I'm 0. They rode in silence for a minute. Rain tapped the windshield in steady rhythm. You're a good dad, Sophie said suddenly. The kind who shows up in the storm. I have a minute. Marcus blinked. I'm trying to be due, he said quietly. They reached the Motel Sunset Inn, a worn-out building with flickering neon and cracked pavement. As he parked, Maya turned to him. Thank you, Marcus. You didn't have to help, but you did. Oh, she paused, searching his face. I hope the judge sees what we see. Marcus nodded once, throat tight. They stepped out, the girls hurrying into the lobby, heels tapping against wet concrete. Marcus stayed in the car a moment longer. 3 days. 3 days until a stranger decided if Zara stayed in his arms or was ripped away by someone who never deserved her to begin with. He leaned back in the seat and looked up at the rain pounding the windshield. I'm gonna fight, he whispered. Whatever it takes. Then he turned the key. The Civic rattled to life, and he drove into the dark. If this story touched your heart, hit like and drop your city in the comments. Someone near you might be watching too. By the time Marcus pulled into the lot behind his apartment complex, the storm had eased into a quiet drizzle. The building stood like it always had, tired, gray, and slouched under the weight of time. But to Marcus, it was more than crumbling concrete. It was home, at least for now. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, his boots squeaking with every step, the chill of the rain still clinging to his skin. When he reached the 2nd floor, the light outside his door flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the hallway. He unlocked the door and pushed it open with a soft creak. Inside, the warmth wrapped around him like an old blanket. It smelled of cinnamon and lemon cleaner, leftover traces from Ms. Janice's once-a-week favor. The tiny apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of cartoons still playing on the old TV set. Zara was curled up on the couch, a thin blanket covering her legs, her stuffed rabbit tucked beneath her chin. Her face was peaceful, mouth slightly open, chest rising and falling in the rhythm of deep sleep. Across from her, in the recliner, sat Ms. Darlene, the retired nurse from down the hall. She looked up from the book in her lap and smiled when she saw Marcus. She tried to stay up for you, she whispered, standing slowly and stretching her back. But those little eyes couldn't fight the sleep anymore. 3. Marcus nodded, his voice thick with exhaustion. Thank you, Ms. D.I. I owe you. Oh, you owe me nothing. Marcus, you're doing the Lord's work, raising that little girl on your own. Oh, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the $20 bill he'd set aside earlier, crumpled but still warm from his grip. She waved it off before he could offer it. No, sir. Keep it. You need it more than I do. I can't keep asking for help. You didn't ask, she interrupted gently, patting his arm. And besides, I remember what it's like, being a parent, the sleepless nights, the worries, the sacrifices. Only difference is, I had a husband to lean on. You don't. Her words settled in his chest. He nodded again, grateful beyond measure. After she left, he knelt beside the couch, brushing a curl from Zara's cheek. Her eyes fluttered open at the touch. Daddy, I'm here. Baby girl. She sat up, still groggy. You're late. They too. I know. I'm sorry. He hugged her, holding her tight. Had to help some folks on the road. I did. Were they nice? They were lost. Like we've been. Sometimes. Is love? Zara pulled back slightly and looked into his eyes. Mommy said I might have to live with her. Is that true? The question cut deeper than he expected. He drew in a slow breath. We're going to be fine, he said. Not quite lying, but not fully confident either. I'm doing everything I can to make sure of that. Will, she leaned her head against his chest. I don't want to go. You won't. He whispered into her hair. I promise. We good sign. Even if it was a promise he had no idea how to keep. The next morning, Marcus was up before the sun. The air in the apartment was cold, and the radiator clanked like it was protesting the work. He made instant oatmeal for Zara, slicing in half a banana and sprinkling a bit of brown sugar on top, her favorite. She ate quietly, swinging her legs under the table. You working again tonight? She asked between bites. Yeah, baby, but only until 8. I'll be back in time for our story. I goes. You gonna do the dragon voice? He smiled. Of course. Wouldn't be a story without it. End quote. After walking her to the school bus, Marcus headed straight to the garage. The shop was already alive with noise, air compressors hissing, the clang of metal against metal, country music playing low from an old speaker near the office. Tony, the manager, gave him a nod. Heard from the lawyer yet? Marcus shook his head. Court's Saturday. I won, Tony grunted. You're a good dad. Marcus, any judge worth their salt will see that. Is have to. I hope you're right. Is not a get done. He worked a full shift, changing brake pads, tuning engines, and staying too long under one ancient Cadillac trying to fix a seized starter motor. By the time he finished and wiped the grease from his hands, the sky outside was already darkening. He switched uniforms in the back, pulled on his delivery jacket, and headed out again. Pizza runs, hot wings, one address after another. All the while, his thoughts swirled around the upcoming court date. Lena's words echoed in his head. She needs more than bedtime stories. It is acquired. But what did Lena know about sacrifice? About waking up before dawn to pack lunches and walk to the bus stop in the rain? About memorizing fairy tales just to make a little girl smile after a long day? Marcus had lived through things Lena only read about in headlines. And still, she believed her bank account gave her the right to take Zara away. At 10:45 p.m., he finished his last delivery. On his way home, the rain returned, lighter now, more a whisper than a storm, but it tapped against his windshield in rhythm, like a ticking clock counting down to Saturday. At a red light, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Hello? Is this Marcus Brown? A man's voice asked. Yes. Speaking. Tincture. This is Officer Hartley. From Family Court Services. Just a quick update. The custody hearing remains set for 9 a.m. Saturday morning. Judge William Harper presiding. Where? Harper? Marcus repeated. The name unfamiliar. That's correct. See you then. Have a good night. The log. The line went dead. Harper. Another name. Another suit. Another man who'd look at him and see a tired black man in work boots. Not a father who'd moved mountains to keep his daughter fed, clothed, and safe. Marcus dropped the phone into the cup holder and gripped the wheel. 3 days. 3 days to prove his life meant more than his paycheck. He drove home, pulled into the lot, and turned off the engine. The silence rang louder than the rain. He looked up at the apartment window. Zara's nightlight glowed faintly through the curtain. Marcus took a deep breath and spoke aloud, maybe to himself, maybe to something greater. 3 more days. Baby girl, I ain't losing you. 2K blank. The sun rose slowly the next morning, its light muted by thick, lingering clouds that cast a gray haze over the neighborhood. Marcus stood in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting the collar of his work shirt. It was wrinkled, but clean. He tugged the sleeves, checking for stains, running his hands through his short-cropped hair to smooth it down. Zara padded out of her room in her oversized Garfield slippers, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Is today court day? Not yet. Baby, Marcus said, kneeling to her level. 2 more days. But I do need you to be extra good for Ms. Darlene tonight. I got a long shift. Oh, she nodded, wrapping her arms around his neck. I'll be good. Promise. 1. Marcus kissed the top of her head. That's my girl. With a do, the walk to the bus stop was chilly. Fall had begun to show its teeth, leaves skittering across the sidewalks, breath fogging in the morning air. Zara waved from the bus window, her little hand pressed to the glass until the bus turned the corner. Back at the apartment, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a mug of weak coffee and a stack of documents, pay stubs, bank statements, a handwritten letter from Ms. Janice testifying to his character, and a drawing from Zara titled, Me and Daddy at the Zoo. He slipped it into the folder. It wouldn't carry legal weight, but maybe, just maybe, it would say what words couldn't. At the garage, Tony assigned him a rusted-out Chevy pickup that needed a full brake job. Marcus lost himself in the work, wrenching, greasing, tightening bolts until the world outside the lift stopped mattering. But it crept in. Anyway, every time someone in a suit picked up their Lexus, every time a man in polished shoes complained about a $300 repair, Marcus thought about Lena's lawyer, Mr. Daniels, about the words they would use: unfit, unstable, financially incapable. None of them would mention bedtime songs. None of them would talk about the time Zara caught the flu and Marcus stayed up 3 nights straight, cooling her forehead with a wet cloth and holding her hand through every cough. They'd look at numbers, at bank statements and rent receipts. They wouldn't see her smile when he came through the door, or how she still checked the window every night at 7, waiting for his headlights. By noon, Marcus was wiping sweat from his brow when Tony called him over. Phone call, he said. Line 1. Was Nowie. Marcus wiped his hands and picked up the receiver on the wall. This is Marcus. Is the way. A pause. Then, Mr. Brown. This is Sophie. From the other night? Well, Marcus blinked. Sophie, the one with the Mercedes? That's me, she said, laughing lightly. I got your number from the hotel manager. I hope that's okay. Yeah. Sure. Everything all right? Yes. More than all right. Actually. She hesitated, then added, my sister and I, we told our dad about what you did, how you stopped, helped us. He was surprised. Man. Marcus leaned against the counter. I didn't do it for attention. I know, she said. That's why it mattered. Adiessa. There was a quiet pause on the line. We don't know what you're going through, Sophie continued. But Maya and we've been thinking about what you said, about your daughter, and we wanted to say thank you for reminding us that being there matters more than anything else. Marcus didn't know what to say. Anyway, she said quickly, I won't keep you. Just thank you. Then she hung up. Marcus stood there for a long moment, staring at the phone. That night, after his shift delivering food across half the city, he returned home to find Miss Bies, Darlene asleep in the recliner and Zara curled up with her stuffed rabbit. The TV flickered with the end credits of some old cartoon. He carried Zara to bed, tucking the blanket around her tiny frame. She stirred, eyes blinking open. You're home, she murmured. I always come home, he whispered. Did you do the dragon voice tonight? Ms. Darlene read the story, he said, but I'll do it double tomorrow. Agond. She smiled and drifted off again. Marcus returned to the kitchen, pulling the court file from his bag. He stared at it, flipping through the pages, stopping on the photo he'd paperclipped to the inside. Zara on her 7th birthday. Icing on her nose. Missing front tooth. Laughing mid-blink. There was no dollar amount that could define that moment. Thursday turned into Friday. The morning began with a voicemail from Mr. Howell, his overworked public defender. Marcus, we're still scheduled for 9 a.m. Saturday. Be early. Wear something clean. Don't let Daniels rattle you. Donne tumene. Easier said than done. Marcus cleaned the apartment, changed out the curtains, rewashed all of Zara's clothes. He knew no one from the court would visit. but still he had to feel prepared. That night, he let Zara stay up a little later. They made pancakes for dinner shaped like hearts and stars and watched old cartoons. "Daddy?" she asked while licking syrup from her fingers. "Yeah. Baby? Will the judge be nice?" Marcus looked at her. Innocent. Trusting. "I hope so," he said. "But even if he's not, I'll still fight." Like a superhero," he chuckled. "Exactly like a superhero." ID. When she fell asleep that night, Marcus stayed on the couch, watching the ceiling. Every creak of the pipes felt louder. Every passing car cast ghost-like shadows on the walls. At 2:17 a.m., he made a cup of coffee. At 4:42, he ironed his best shirt, faded blue, but neat. At 6:10, he packed a folder with every document he had, every proof of love he could carry. And at 6:45, he kissed Zara's forehead and whispered, "You sleep in. Miss Darlene will make pancakes. I'll be back soon." Reprited, then he stepped out into the morning chill, his breath fogging in front of him, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. Tomorrow was Judgment Day, and he was walking into it with nothing but truth, love, and hope. The courthouse loomed ahead, tall and severe in its design, all cold stone and sharp lines. It sat like a monument to rules and decisions, unfeeling and unyielding. Marcus stepped through its glass doors at exactly 8:25 a.m., heart thudding, breath steady but shallow. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old wood polish and brewing coffee from the nearby vending machine. The floor was a checkerboard of dull tiles, scuffed from decades of footsteps. Marcus had dressed as best he could, navy slacks that fit just a little too snug, a freshly ironed shirt, a dark tie borrowed from Mr. Frey's. Tony at the shop. He wore his best shoes, polished black but creased from years of walking. People milled about the hallway. Lawyers in tailored suits. Nervous parents. Court officers with badges and radios. It was a world that moved around Marcus, but never included him. Mr. Howell, his public defender, spotted him near the courtroom entrance. He approached quickly, carrying a worn leather briefcase and looking like he hadn't slept in a week. "You made it," Howell said, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "You look good?" "Reasoned." "Thanks," Marcus replied, straightening his tie. "I feel like I'm walking into a storm." "Was not that?" "Well," Howell sighed, "you are. But we've got the facts. You've been consistent. That counts." "I will." Marcus nodded slowly, eyes drifting toward the large oak doors at the end of the hallway. Then they opened. "All rise," came the bailiff's voice, echoing through the corridor. Family court. Judge William Harper presiding. "Den." Marcus froze. The name hit him like a brick. Harper, the same name Sophie had mentioned over the phone. Judge Harper stepped through the side door and took his place behind the bench. Tall, distinguished, silver hair, neatly combed, eyes sharp and unreadable. He adjusted his robe and sat, looking out over the courtroom with practiced calm. Marcus's chest tightened. That was him, the father of the two girls stranded in the storm. Judge Harper scanned the room, then paused, his gaze settling on Marcus with a flicker of recognition. It was quick, barely a breath, but Marcus saw it. "He knows." Judge Harper cleared his throat. "We are here for the custody hearing of Zara Elise Brown. Petitioner, Lena Carter. Respondent, Marcus Brown. Are both parties present?" "Yes, Your Honor," Mr. Daniels said smoothly, standing beside Lena. She was dressed in a tailored navy suit, hair styled to perfection, makeup subtle but flawless. She didn't even glance at Marcus. "Here, Your Honor," Howell echoed. The judge nodded. Then, unexpectedly, "I'd like to call for a short recess. 15 minutes. Deed." Daniels blinked. "Your Honor, we're ready to proceed." "I said 15 minutes. Judge Harper's tone was final. The bailiff gestured for the court to clear. Marcus stood slowly, confused. Howell raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual," he murmured. "Something's up." Moments later, the bailiff approached. Mr. Bud Brown, the judge would like to speak with you. Privately, asked. Daniels immediately protested. That's highly irregular. The bailiff didn't blink. Just Mr. Brown. Ades and Dells. Marcus swallowed hard, his heart thudding in his chest as he followed the officer through a side hallway, past framed photographs of past judges and courtroom sketches, until they reached the judge's chambers. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Judge Harper stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city skyline. Sit down, Mr. Brown. Aye. Marcus obeyed. Unsure whether to speak, the judge turned slowly, his face unreadable. 3 nights ago, my daughters were stranded on Highway 87 inches, the pouring rain. Marcus nodded cautiously. No one stopped for them, except you. Edan. I didn't know who they were, Marcus said quietly. I wasn't doing it for anything. Everyone. I know, Judge Harper said. That's why it matters. I teed. He walked around to his desk, sat down, and folded his hands. They told me about you, your kindness, your exhaustion, your daughter. Marcus sat still, unsure what was happening. I read your file last night, Harper continued. Every page, every claim, every accusation. Your ex-wife says you work too much, that you can't provide, but she hasn't offered one piece of evidence showing neglect or abuse. He leaned forward. Do you know what else I read? Marcus shook his head. Letters from her employers. Notes from her previous arrests. One for possession, one for public intoxication. Both dropped. But they're on record. Marcus blinked. I didn't know that. You weren't meant to weigh, Harper replied. But I did some calling around. Your neighbors? They call you reliable. Your daughter's school? They say you show up to everything. You volunteer for field trips. Your daughter talks about you constantly. Marcus felt something burn behind his eyes. He tried to blink it away. I should recuse myself, Harper said. But I won't. Because character matters. What you did for my daughters without knowing who they were, that told me more about the kind of father you are than any paycheck ever could. I clear one. Marcus cleared his throat. I just want to keep my daughter. Well. Harper looked at him for a long moment. You just might. I was. Then he stood. Let's finish this. And, back in the courtroom, Marcus returned to his seat. Lena looked up, suspicious. Daniels leaned over to whisper something, eyes narrowing. Marcus didn't care. For the first time in weeks, he felt the ground under his feet again. He looked toward the bench. Judge Harper had resumed his seat, face once more unreadable, voice calm. The court has received new information, he announced. Information previously undisclosed by the petitioner. Is 9. Daniels shot to his feet. Your Honor. Sit down, Mr. Daniels. With Tegta, Marcus exhaled. Slowly. He wasn't out of the storm yet. But now, the wind was at his back. Lena's composure cracked the moment Judge Harper mentioned undisclosed information. Her perfectly painted nails clutched the edge of the table. And her lawyer, Mr. Daniels, stood frozen beside her, his mouth half open, as if he couldn't decide whether to object or retreat. Judge Harper didn't look at them. Instead, he opened a folder on his bench and flipped to a specific page. His expression was unreadable, calm as stone, but Marcus recognized something there, something restrained, as if this man, this judge, was walking a tightrope between duty and personal reckoning. This court has received documentation regarding the petitioner's legal history, the judge began. While the charges were previously dismissed due to procedural issues, the existence of 2 arrests for possession of controlled substances remains a matter of record. Two-way. Daniels found his voice. Your Honor, those arrests were dropped. The charges were dropped. Judge Harper said sharply. Not the facts. He turned a page. In addition, this court has reviewed employment records indicating the petitioner was terminated from her previous position for arriving at work intoxicated. We have an interrection. Lena shifted in her seat, Her lips parted in protest, but no sound came out. Marcus sat still. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He didn't want to disturb the air in the room. Every molecule felt sacred. Furthermore, the judge continued, testimony from neighbors and educational professionals supports the respondent's consistent presence in his daughter's life. Records show Mr. Brown has attended all parent-teacher conferences, field trips, and maintained a stable if modest residence. There is no documented evidence of neglect, abuse, or instability. Then, the room had gone completely still. Daniel straightened his jacket. We'd like to request an evidentiary hearing to contest the validity of these documents. Request denied. Harper said firmly. You've had ample opportunity to disclose your client's history. Withholding this information was a calculated decision. Vaded, Lena finally spoke. This isn't fair. Her voice trembled not with sadness, but with disbelief. He works at a garage. He delivers food at night. That's not the life I want for my daughter. Judge Harper fixed his gaze on her, and for the first time, Marcus saw the fire behind those cool gray eyes. You had your chance to provide a stable life. Mrs. Carter, you forfeited it. What this child needs isn't luxury. She needs love. She needs presence. She needs someone who shows up. Resent. Marcus's throat tightened. The judge turned toward him. Mr. Brown, do you have anything you wish to say before I issue my decision? Marcus rose slowly. His knees felt unsteady, but his voice was solid. I know I don't have money, he said. I don't have a big house or fancy lawyers, but I got one thing nobody else in this room has: her trust. Every day, I show up for my little girl. Every scraped knee, every school project, every nightmare at 2 a.m. I'm there. I don't do it for credit. I do it 'cause that's what a father does. To Kateri sigh, he paused, glanced at Lena. I never tried to keep her from her mama, but I won't let anyone take her from me. I made a promise when she was born that I'd never leave, and I intend to keep it. Silence. Then, Judge Harper closed the folder, folded his hands. This court finds in favor of the respondent. Full physical and legal custody of Zara Elise Brown is awarded to her father, Marcus Brown. Supervised visitation may be arranged with the petitioner, contingent on completion of a drug and rehabilitation program, to be determined by the court. It's Saban. The gavel struck. Marcus sat down heavily. It felt like someone had cut the tension cords around his chest. Air finally rushed into his lungs. He had won. He had really won. Daniels leaned toward Lena, speaking in low, urgent tones. But she was frozen. Her eyes were locked on the bench, wide and wild, mascara beginning to run. She looked like a woman who just realized the world wasn't bending to her will for once. The bailiff approached. Mr. Brown, you're free to go. Oath. Marcus stood. He turned, met Judge Harper's gaze. For a moment, there was no robe. No bench, just two fathers, looking at each other with something close to understanding. Thank you, Marcus said, quietly but firmly. Judge Harper gave a single nod. Marcus left the courtroom, the hallway suddenly too bright, the echo of his footsteps louder than he remembered. He stepped outside into cool autumn air. The storm had passed. The sun peeked through cloud breaks, catching on the edges of the courthouse like a blessing. His phone buzzed. He answered without thinking. Marcus? It was Miss Darlene's voice, laced with hope. How did it go? He couldn't help it. He laughed. I won. Ms. D. I really won. End quote. He could hear her crying softly on the other end. Oh, Lord. Thank you. Zara's gonna be so happy. 8. I'm coming home, he said, walking faster toward his car. Tell her to get her shoes. We're getting ice cream. Oh. He drove with the window down, letting the crisp breeze pour in, mixing with the heat in his chest. Every red light felt like a song. Every honk, a drumbeat. At home, Zara was sitting on the couch, cradling her rabbit, eyes glued to the door. When he walked in, she jumped to her feet. Daddy, he knelt, arms wide. She ran into them at full speed. "You're staying with me," he whispered into her hair. "Forever." "I bet." She pulled back. "Really? I promise." Rizizan. They hugged again. Tighter this time. Long enough to forget the months of worry. Long enough to feel the future settling in around them. Later. At Frank's Creamery. Zara licked chocolate ice cream with extra sprinkles. Marcus sat across from her, his own vanilla melting slowly in the cup. "Daddy," she said between bites. "What made the judge choose you?" Marcus smiled, watching her swing her legs happily under the table. "I helped someone once," he said. "Didn't think twice about it. Guess sometimes the world sees you when you least expect it." "As edgy. Like magic?" he chuckled. "No. Baby. Like justice." "Aye." The next morning, the apartment was soaked in golden sunlight. It poured through the living room window, casting warm stripes across the worn carpet and flickering over Zara's curls as she built a Lego castle in her pajamas. Her laughter filled the small space, high and bright, like wind chimes dancing in a breeze. Marcus stood in the kitchen, still in his undershirt, hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. He watched her from the doorway, the sight of her at peace settling something deep inside his chest. For the first time in months, the silence wasn't heavy. It was full. "You want blueberries or chocolate chips in your pancakes?" he called out. "Both," he laughed. Spoken like a queen. "What's easy?" He got to work, flipping pancakes like a man with purpose. The smell of sizzling batter mingled with the faint scent of last night's rain still clinging to the windowsill. As the first batch browned on the stove, his phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number again. His stomach tensed before he answered. "Hello, Mr. Brown?" A warm, familiar voice. "This is Sophie. Sophie Harper." "Well, 7-2. He blinked. "Oh. Hey. Everything okay?" "Yes. Everything's fine. I was just... My dad asked me to call you. He wanted to invite you and Zara to dinner tomorrow night. Just a quiet thank you." And 200. Marcus leaned against the counter, trying to picture it, his daughter sitting at a table with the judge who just handed him his life back. "I appreciate the invitation," he said slowly, "but I'm not sure if that's really necessary." "Teen." Sophie's voice softened. "It's not about obligation. He just wanted you to know he doesn't see you as a case file. And neither do we." "Is not cheddar." Marcus looked at Zara, who was humming to herself, stacking a plastic tower higher and higher. "She loves meeting new people," he said after a pause, "especially the ones that like ice cream." "Aye," Sophie laughed. "We have ice cream. And Maya wants to teach her to play Mario Kart." End quote. He chuckled. "All right. We'll be there. 200 an hour. Great. I'll text you the address." Esophagus. After he hung up, he slid the phone back on the counter, turned the pancakes, and said aloud, "Guess we're having dinner with royalty. Baby." "Okay." Zara looked up. "Like a castle?" "Close enough." Ine. Sunday evening came faster than he expected. He borrowed a dark blue tie from Tony at the shop and made sure Zara wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with little sunflowers and a slightly frayed hem that still made her feel like a princess. They pulled up to the Harper home just after 6:45. It sat on a hill in Greystone Hills, nestled between sycamores and rose bushes manicured so perfectly. They looked fake. The driveway was long enough to fit 5 of Marcus's Hondas end to end. "Whoa," Zara whispered as they parked. "Yeah," Marcus murmured. "They do all right." Eek ratted. The front door opened before they even reached it. Sophie and Maya stood smiling in the warm glow of the porch light. "You made it," Sophie said, stepping forward to hug Marcus. It caught him slightly off guard, but he returned it. Awkward but genuine. Maya knelt in front of Zara. "You must be Zara," she said warmly. "We've got a whole game room just for you. You want to see?" Zara looked up at Marcus, eyes wide. He gave a gentle nod. "Go ahead, baby. I'll catch up." Zara hesitated only a moment before slipping her hand into Maya's. They disappeared into the house, their voices trailing like laughter down a hallway. Sophie stood with Marcus in the foyer, nodding toward the arched ceiling. Bit much, right? He smirked. Not exactly how I grew up. Is not Massett, she smiled. Me neither. We just landed here. Oh, Doc. Just then, footsteps echoed down the staircase. Judge Harper appeared, dressed in jeans and a soft gray sweater. His expression relaxed, almost unrecognizable from the stern figure in the courtroom. Marcus, he said, walking down to greet him. Welcome to our home. Ax studi in datas. Marcus reached out, shook the judge's hand firmly. Thank you. For everything. 18 Zofer. No need to thank me, Harper said. I just did my job. Wait. Marcus looked him in the eye. No. Sir. You did more than that. You saw me. If, doys. There was a pause, brief but heavy. Then Harper smiled. Come on. Dinner's ready. With cover dime. The dining room was warm and bright. The long table crowded with dishes, roasted chicken, garlic, mashed potatoes, collard greens, cornbread, and a bowl of mac and cheese so creamy Marcus almost teared up just looking at it. Zara sat beside Maya, laughing at some silly impression she was doing. Sophie passed rolls. Harper poured iced tea, and Marcus, for a moment, just sat there watching it unfold. It didn't feel like a courtroom. It felt like a table. It felt like family. After dinner, the girls took Zara into the den to teach her how to play video games. Marcus and Judge Harper stepped out onto the back patio, where the city lights sparkled in the valley below. They stood in silence for a moment before Harper spoke. My daughters told me they'd trade every dollar I've earned for more dinners like this. As in really loke, Marcus nodded. Zara told me last week she'd rather live in our little apartment with me than in a mansion with someone who doesn't know her favorite bedtime story. I do, Harper chuckled. She sounds smart. Is a ride. She is. As, the judge turned to face him. You reminded me of something I forgot. Marcus, that fatherhood isn't measured in what we provide, it's in what we prioritize. Marcus looked out at the city. I didn't expect any of this. Marcus edited. Neither did I. To do. A pause settled between them. Not awkward. Just full. Then Harper asked, would you and Zara be open to making this a regular thing? Marcus raised an eyebrow. I think my girls are hoping to build something new, Harper said. And maybe. So am I. Redig decent. Marcus smiled slowly. Yeah. I think we'd like that. Well, inside. Laughter rang out, Zara shrieking with joy as Maya exaggeratedly lost a video game round. Sophie called out, rematch, and Harper chuckled beside Marcus. Sounds like they're settling in. No, Marcus nodded. She's never had sisters before. Ode. Well, the judge said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Now she's got two. ID. 2 weeks later, the world had returned to its everyday rhythm. But something inside Marcus had shifted. The edges of his life, once rough, frantic, sharpened by anxiety, had softened. The apartment still smelled like floor cleaner and cheap candles, and the rent was still due on the 1st. But the way he carried himself had changed. There was a lightness in his walk, a groundedness in his voice. He picked up Zara from school every afternoon now, and each time she came running out with her backpack half-zipped and her curls bouncing. He felt like he was being given a second chance all over again. That Tuesday, they stopped at a small family diner on their way home, one of those old places with cracked leather booths, formica tables, and waitresses who called you Han without blinking. Zara sat across from him, coloring on the kids' menu with a stubby red crayon. You think, Ms. Knott, Maya's gonna come to my school play? She asked. Not looking up, Marcus smiled over his cup of coffee. I think if she doesn't, you'll have a very sad grown-up on your hands. To have a letter to Brad. She said I could wear one of her necklaces if I'm careful. If you won to that's a big deal, he said. Better not trip on stage. Huh? She looked up, grinning with a milk mustache. Daddy, I never trip. You trip. Telbing Setsend, he chuckled. Okay. I trip. I will. Their food arrived, grilled cheese for her. chicken fried steak for him. As they ate, his phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from Sophie. Hey, Dad's hosting a community forum Saturday. Wants you there. Says he could use a voice like yours. It's not Ferd. Marcus stared at it. A voice like mine. He tucked the phone away and refocused on Zara, who was now constructing a pickle tower on her plate. Do you know what a community forum is? He asked. No, she said. Is it like a spelling bee? Not even close. Well, she squinted suspiciously. Does it have snacks? Maybe. It's stock. Then I'll think about it. Marcus laughed again, but the idea simmered in his chest. Judge Harper had mentioned something. Vaguely. During dinner. Something about rebuilding trust in the community. Reaching out beyond courtrooms. Marcus hadn't expected to be included, and yet here it was. Saturday afternoon arrived with gray skies and a biting wind. The forum was held at Jefferson Community Center, a big red brick building with a parking lot full of rusty sedans and spotless SUVs alike. Inside, folding chairs lined the hall, and a small stage had been set up in front of a long table draped with a blue cloth. Marcus arrived just before 3. Zara holding his hand in one and her stuffed bunny in the other. The place was already buzzing. People from every corner of the neighborhood had come out: teachers, mechanics, pastors, activists, young families, and tired grandparents. Sophie met him at the door, clipboard in hand. You made it, she said, smiling. Dad saved you a seat up front. 18-7, Marcus glanced down at his boots, wiped them once more on the mat. I'm not used to sitting up front, he said. She leaned closer. Then it's time you got used to being seen. Duck. Zara squeezed his hand. Do they have snacks? Sophie laughed. Absolutely. We having down. They walked in together. Judge Harper was already speaking, addressing a room that had grown respectfully quiet. And that's why these forums matter. Because policy isn't just words on paper. It's people. It's families. It's children who need bedtime stories more than courtroom battles. Oh. Applause rippled across the room. Harper spotted Marcus and gestured toward the stage. I'd like to invite someone up, he said, who reminded me what justice looks like when it lives outside these walls. Marcus Brown. Would you join us? Marcus froze for a second. Then Zara gave him a nudge. Go well. Daddy. Be brave. He stood slowly, made his way to the microphone. Every step felt like walking uphill, through mud and nerves and old doubts. But when he got there, he didn't tremble. He looked out at the sea of faces. My name is Marcus Brown, he began. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I fix cars. I deliver food at night. I pack lunch boxes and read bedtime stories. A few people chuckled softly, leaning forward. I used to think none of that mattered in rooms like this, that unless you had a suit and a title, your voice didn't count. But I'm here today because somebody listened. Somebody saw me. And that gave me back my daughter. Oh, he paused, clearing his throat. I ain't here to preach. I'm just here to say that sometimes justice don't wear a robe. Sometimes it's a dad changing his whole life for a 7-year-old girl with big dreams and a backpack full of glitter pens. Laughter. Soft and warm. And if I can be seen, then maybe more people like me will step forward. Speak up. Show up. And maybe the next time someone says they're just a mechanic, or just a single parent, maybe we'll listen. Oh. The room burst into applause. Not polite. Not obligatory. Real. Sophie was clapping. Harper, too. And Zara, standing on her chair, was the loudest of them all. That's my daddy, she shouted proudly. Marcus laughed and bowed his head. Afterward, people came up to shake his hand. Some thanked him. Some asked questions. A few said they'd never heard a story like his. He stood in the middle of it all, calm and solid. Later, as they walked back to the car, Zara tugged on his sleeve. Daddy? Yeah. Baby? I think you're kind of famous now. Thank you, Azurima, he chuckled, swinging her hand gently. Famous is fine, he said, but I'd rather be yours. She squeezed his hand tighter. You already are. Was I wanting to minute? The first snow of the season fell the following Thursday. Light flakes drifted down like bits of torn paper, settling on rooftops and car hoods as the city hushed itself in response. Marcus stood outside his apartment complex, watching the soft white dust gather on the cracked sidewalk. He'd never liked winter much. It meant tighter heating bills, frozen locks, and extra shifts just to keep the power on. But this year felt different. Zara came tumbling out the front door behind him, wrapped in a puffy purple coat and a scarf nearly as long as she was tall. Her cheeks were already red from excitement. Can we make a snowman before school? She begged, hopping from foot to foot. Marcus checked the time on his phone. You've got 12 minutes. Well, pitted Erzin. Challenge accepted, she shouted, grabbing a handful of snow and getting to work. He crouched beside her, packing snow with practiced hands. As they built, laughter echoed down the street. Neighbors were outside too. Kids throwing snowballs. Parents sipping coffee on porches. The cold didn't bite like it used to. Maybe it was the coat Judge Harper had sent Zara last week, lined with fleece and warmer than anything he could have afforded on his own. Or maybe it was just the feeling of being seen, supported. You think Mr. Harper likes snow? Zara asked, shaping a lumpy snowball for the snowman's head. I think he likes anything that gets you smiling, Marcus said. They finished the snowman just as the school bus rounded the corner. Zara gave him a high five, then hugged him tightly, her mittened hands clumsy against his back. Don't forget the parent meeting today, she reminded him. 3 o'clock. I'll be there, he promised. By mid-afternoon, Marcus had already knocked out 2 tire changes, 1 oil job, and a water pump replacement. His hands were sore, his back tight, but his mind was clear. At 2:45, he punched out and washed up, scrubbing his fingers clean until the grease was mostly gone. He threw on a flannel and grabbed the bus across town to Zara's school. Jefferson Elementary looked like every other public school: faded murals, cracked sidewalks, and a playground where the swings creaked in the wind. But the minute Marcus walked through the door, he was greeted like a regular. Mr. Brown, the receptionist smiled, checking the list. Zara's in Ms. Go. Carter's room, 2nd floor. He climbed the stairs slowly, passing walls lined with finger-painted turkeys and glitter-covered snowflakes. Ms. Carter's classroom was a cheerful mess of books, art supplies, and crooked name tags. Zara spotted him instantly from her desk and waved like he was a celebrity. You came, she whispered, as if surprised. I said I would, he said, ruffling her hair. The parent meeting was small, just a few parents, a guidance counselor, and Ms. Carter herself. They discussed curriculum changes, winter break plans, and a fundraiser for new library books. But what stood out most was when the principal entered, clipboard in hand. I have an announcement, she said. Starting next month, we're launching a parent mentorship program. It's for dads who want to be more involved but don't always know how or where to start. Well, coolest, she smiled directly at Marcus. We're inviting Mr. Brown to be our first mentor. He'll help guide other fathers, especially single ones, through everything from report cards to bedtime routines. ITD 23. The room clapped. Small but sincere. Zara's eyes went wide. Daddy, you're going to be a teacher? Marcus blinked. Something like that. ADS. Later that night, Marcus stood in the living room, folding laundry while Zara read on the couch. The news murmured softly in the background: local politics, sports scores, weather warnings. Then a headline caught his ear. Community hero inspires mentorship movement. He turned up the volume. The screen showed a still image of him from the forum standing at the podium, speaking into the mic. The reporter's voice continued. After his powerful speech at last week's community forum, Marcus Brown, a single father and mechanic, is helping launch Jefferson Elementary's new mentorship initiative for fathers across the city. It's Stockton, Zara gasped. You're on TV. Marcus raised an eyebrow, suddenly aware of how ridiculous he looked with a pair of her socks in one hand and a teddy bear t-shirt in the other. You think I need an agent? He joked. She grinned. Only if you're doing a commercial next. To Cade, sure. The segment ended with an interview clip of Judge Harper. When men like Marcus Brown lead with love, the rest of us have no excuse to sit back. Marcus sat on the couch beside Zara. Quiet. That was nice, he said softly. She leaned against him. You make the world better. Daddy, if we won, he looked down at her, then kissed the top of her head. No, baby, you do. Well, unquote. Across town that same night, in the quiet hush of a private study, Judge Harper sat at his desk, finishing a letter. The room was lined with shelves of old law books and dusty awards, but on the corner of his desk sat something new, a drawing from Zara, gifted to him last weekend, a crayon heart with 3 stick figures, her, Marcus, and him holding hands. He folded the letter, sealed it, and addressed the envelope carefully. To the Board of Community Justice Initiatives. In it, he wrote about what he'd learned not from textbooks or years on the bench, but from watching a man who fought not for applause, but for bedtime stories. The future, he wrote, would not be built by the powerful, but by the persistent, by men like Marcus, and men like Marcus deserved a seat at every table. The cold deepened in December, and with it came the weight of holidays approaching. For many, it meant gifts and parties and long dinners around full tables. For Marcus, it meant budgeting every dime, working longer hours, and quietly calculating how to make magic happen for Zara with little more than grit and imagination. The auto shop stayed busy as folks rushed to winterize their cars before deeper snows arrived. Mr. Tony handed Marcus extra hours without him asking. It wasn't charity, it was respect. You got a girl who believes in Christmas, right? Tony said, wiping his hands on a rag. Then you better be Santa this year. Marcus nodded, tired but grateful. I'm trying. Tony, one oil change at a time. At night, he drove for the delivery app, balancing insulated bags in the back seat and returning home well past midnight. He moved like a man who didn't want $1, but needed every one. One night, after a triple shift, he tiptoed into the apartment and found Zara asleep on the couch, a plate of cookies beside her. On the TV, the credits of Home Alone were rolling. He gently lifted her into his arms, kissed her forehead, and whispered, You don't ever have to worry. Baby, I got you. In 19, Saturday morning, he took her to a Christmas market downtown. Rows of booths lined the park, selling handmade ornaments, hot cocoa, and wool scarves. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. Zara wore the knit beanie Maya had given her, green with silver sparkles, and clutched her allowance in her tiny gloved hand. I want to get something for Mizzy. Sophie, she said. Really? Marcus looked down. What for? She gave me her old books, and she let me paint her nails. As letter, he smiled. Well, that deserves something shiny. End crease. They stopped at a booth filled with handmade jewelry. Zara picked out a simple silver bracelet with a music note charm. I like it 'cause she always hums songs when she cooks, she said. Marcus paid for it with cash, then tucked it carefully into her coat pocket. As they wandered through the market, people stopped to say hello. Hey, you're the dad from the news. Man, your speech, powerful stuff. Aye. Marcus shook hands, always polite but modest. Zara beamed every time someone recognized him. You're a little famous, she whispered. He grinned. Only because you clapped the loudest. Oh, that evening, as he cleaned up dinner dishes, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Judge Harper. Need a favor. Can you come by tomorrow around 4 p.m.? Bring Zara. Trust me. Has not a Dan, Marcus replied. We'll be there. Dulles about it. When they arrived the next day, Sophie greeted them at the door, a twinkle in her eye. You're just in time, she said. The living room had been transformed. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling. A decorated tree sparkled in the corner. Maya and Zara's drawings were taped along the walls, snowmen, stars, and one surprisingly detailed portrait of Judge Harper in a Santa hat. He emerged from the kitchen wearing that very hat. Red apron tied awkwardly over a sweater. Zara burst out laughing. "You look like a mall Santa," Harper chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment. It's sent. Dinner was pot roast, mashed sweet potatoes, and green beans with slivered almonds. Comfort food. Perfectly done." Marcus looked around the table and realized something. This wasn't just a gathering. This was an invitation. He was no longer a guest. He was part of the story. After dinner, Judge Harper pulled Marcus aside into his study. "I've been thinking," he said, motioning for him to sit, "about what you said at the forum, about fatherhood being about showing up." "Izdakshin," Marcus nodded, unsure where this was headed. "There's a mentorship grant opening next month," Harper continued, "for people who've made a measurable impact in the community. If you apply, I'll endorse you." "Dyson," Marcus blinked. "Me? You've lived the story. You've earned the voice. That's what this city needs." VD staled. He leaned forward. "It's not about politics. It's about presence. We need more men like you visible, especially in rooms where decisions are made." Marcus sat in silence, the weight of the offer settling into his bones. He had spent years trying to stay out of the way, trying to survive quietly. And now someone wanted him at the table. "I'll think about it," he said, voice thick. "But, thank you." "What a twee-fiveness," Harper smiled. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're already doing." That night, back home, Marcus tucked Zara into bed. She was holding the music note bracelet in her hand, excited to wrap it the next day. "Did you like dinner?" he asked. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she nodded sleepily. "Ms. Maya let me help stir the gravy. I think I'm gonna be a chef one day." He smiled. "You'd be great at that." "Du repeated fively." Zara looked up at him, suddenly serious. "You were different tonight." Different how?" "You looked like you belonged there." "Was God drada duvligan?" Marcus paused. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It felt like I did." End quote. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Night, baby." As he turned off the lamp and walked into the living room, the phone buzzed again. Another message from one of the school dads he'd met at the forum. "Hey man, any chance you could talk sometime? Been rough at home. Could use someone who gets it." "Wud?" Marcus stared at it for a long moment. Then he typed, "Absolutely. Let's talk." End quote. Because now, he didn't just have a daughter to fight for. He had a community to show up for. The mentorship meeting was set for Saturday morning in the basement of St. A. Luke's church, a humble space with folding chairs, mismatched mugs, and the faint scent of old hymnals and fresh coffee. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Marcus arrived early. As usual, he helped arrange chairs into a circle, wiping dust off the tables with the sleeve of his jacket. He wore jeans, boots, and the same gray hoodie he always wore when he wanted to feel steady, comfortable, himself. One by one, the fathers trickled in. There was Luis, a landscaper from the east side who hadn't seen his daughter in 6 months due to a custody battle. Then Andre, a truck driver who'd missed birthdays and school plays but was determined not to miss anything else. Even Mr. Daniel, Zara's former schoolmate's father, who had once barely spoken beyond nods, showed up, surprising them all. Each man brought a story, a quiet ache, a need to be seen, not judged. Marcus stood up and cleared his throat. "I'm not here to give speeches," he said, hands in his pockets. "I'm not a counselor. I'm just like y'all, figuring it out day by day. We can anyway." He looked around the room. "But I learned one thing the hard way: being a dad ain't about being perfect. It's about being present." Nods, murmurs of agreement. "We've all messed up," he continued. "We've missed things. But showing up now, today, that matters. That counts." Adas bitterant. He took a breath. "So let's talk. No shame, no pretending. Just men trying to be better." The conversation started slow, halting, awkward. But as the coffee warmed and the silence softened, stories began to flow. Andre spoke first. My boy's 16, taller than me now, but last week, he called just to ask if I'd seen the new Spider-Man movie. I hadn't, but I lied. Told him it was great, just to have something to say. Reported IB. Luis shook his head, smiling sadly. My daughter won't answer my calls. Not yet. Her mom says she's angry. I don't blame her. I left when she was 5, but I write her letters. Every week. I don't even know if she reads them. Eyes. Mr. Daniels leaned forward. My oldest won't even look me in the eye. I was too hard on him for too long. Thought being tough was the same as being strong. It ain't. Is grand. The circle grew tighter, not in distance, but in trust. Marcus listened, then spoke. I used to think I had to prove something every day. That if I didn't give her the world, I wasn't enough. But Zara don't care about brand names. She cares if I show up to her play. She cares if I remember her bunny's name. That's the stuff they carry with them. Was in free do. They sat in silence for a moment after that. Not heavy silence, shared silence. Then someone laughed. A real, unfiltered laugh. Andre had spilled coffee on his shirt, trying to lean back. Guess I'm the first mess of the day, he said. Marcus chuckled. First of many. Yes. After the meeting, a few men lingered. Numbers were exchanged. Hugs were offered in place of handshakes. Luis clapped Marcus on the shoulder. You keep this up. Man, this ain't just a group. It's something bigger. Oh, Marcus didn't say much, just nodded, but the pride in his chest pulsed like a heartbeat. That afternoon, Marcus and Zara visited the library. She had a school project due on Rosa Parks and insisted on doing her own serious research. I'm Zoe. Inside, the library was quiet, warm, and smelled of old pages. Zara walked ahead with purpose, clutching her notebook, while Marcus trailed behind, smiling at her confidence. They found a few books and settled at a corner table. Did you know Rosa Parks was really tired when she said no? Zara asked, flipping pages. Tired of giving up her seat? He asked. She nodded. Yeah, but also tired in her bones. That's what this book says. Marcus ran a finger along the edge of the page. Sometimes, the most important fights come when you're tired. Zara looked up at him. Like when you kept working even when your back hurt? He gave a half smile. Exactly like that. She scribbled something in her notebook. I'm gonna put that in my report. No did. They read for another hour. Side by side. Marcus didn't check his phone once. Later that evening, as they were leaving the library, a woman called out from the sidewalk. Marcus. He turned. It was Denise, Zara's mother. She stood across the street, wrapped in a long beige coat, heels clicking on the pavement as she crossed. Her makeup was lighter than usual, her eyes uncertain. Hey, she said, stopping a few feet from them. Zara froze beside Marcus. She gripped his hand. Marcus straightened. Didn't expect to see you here. I heard about what you've been doing, she said. The mentorship thing, the news stories, the community work. He said nothing. Denise looked at Zara, then back at him. I've been going to meetings, she said. I'm clean. Been clean for 2 months. Is Insa? Marcus nodded once. That's good. En prosnazamenta. I was wondering if maybe, someday, I could visit, supervised. Of course. She swallowed. I don't want to lose her forever. Creation. Zara clung tighter to his hand. Marcus looked down at his daughter, then back at Denise. Zara's peace comes first, he said carefully. If she's ready, we can talk. But this isn't about you or me anymore. It's about what's best for her. Denise's eyes glistened. I understand. I just wanted you to know. I'm trying. And? He nodded again, and she turned to leave. Zara whispered. I don't want to go with her. You won't, he said gently. Not unless you want to. I promise. Ever. That night, as he tucked her in, Zara asked, Why'd she come back? Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, brushing her hair from her forehead. Sometimes people make mistakes, he said. Big ones. And sometimes they try to fix them. That doesn't mean we have to forget. But it means we listen. If we're ready. Zara blinked slowly. I don't think I'm ready. I'm C. He smiled. That's okay. Baby. I'm here. That's all that matters tonight. As she nodded, rolled over. And soon, the quiet rhythm of her breath filled the room. Marcus stood by the door for a long moment, watching the rise and fall of her small shoulders under the blanket. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, he had earned something priceless. Her trust. And that was enough. Snow blanketed the city like a soft hush as the week rolled on. Winter break was just days away. And Zara's excitement was hard to contain. She'd already decorated their small apartment with paper snowflakes and strung popcorn garlands that made the place feel festive. Even if their Christmas tree was nothing more than a tabletop fake pine with 3 blinking lights and a star that leaned slightly to the left. Do you think Santa knows we moved? She asked one night as they curled up on the couch. Marcus grinned. Santa's got GPS. Baby, he'll find you anywhere. Zara looked reassured, then leaned her head on his arm. I hope he brings Mrs. Maya earrings. She said her favorite ones broke. And, he chuckled, you thinking of everyone else before yourself again? She shrugged. That's what Christmas is for. I am Zide. Marcus wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. Well, lucky for the world. It's got a little angel in it. Tencher. That Saturday, Marcus received an unexpected text from Judge Harper. Emergency meeting Monday. The board wants to fast-track the mentorship grant application. You're a finalist. You'll need to present. Too. Marcus stared at the message, pulse quickening. He hadn't even officially applied yet, just spoken informally to Harper about it. The fact that they'd noticed him, that they wanted him to stand in front of a panel and speak again. It filled him with both pride and a deep, gnawing fear. He spent most of Sunday morning pacing, trying to draft a speech on a notepad between bites of cold toast. He scratched through sentence after sentence. Nothing sounded right. Why don't you just talk like you do at my school? Zara asked, peering over his shoulder. You always sound smart there. God Tuhan. He looked at her. You think so? She nodded. Even Ms. Lowe. Carter said so. She said you're brave. Ricard. He stared at the blank page again, then slowly started writing. I'm not a man of titles. I'm a man of actions. Monday arrived bitterly cold. Marcus wore his best button-up and a coat that was one size too small but neat enough to pass. He kissed Zara on the forehead before walking out the door. You got this. Daddy, she whispered. The presentation was held in a government building downtown, on the top floor with a wide window that overlooked the city. The room was formal panel members in blazers and sensible shoes, water pitchers on long oak tables, and a microphone at the front. Marcus stepped up when his name was called. He took a breath, looked out at the faces before him, and began. I never thought I'd be in a room like this. Honestly, I spent a long time trying to stay invisible. Being a single father means doing everything often silently. I work 2 jobs. I pack lunches at 6 a.m. and finish delivery runs after midnight. But I'm not telling you that for sympathy. I'm telling you because I know I'm not the only one. 80. He paused. There are a lot of men like me. We love our kids, but we don't always know how to ask for help. We've made mistakes. Sure. But we're not broken. We just need someone to believe we can do more than survive. We can lead. We can teach. We can be seen. Asked. The room was quiet, attentive. I started a small mentorship group in the basement of St. Luke's Church. First it was 5 of us. Now it's 12. And it's growing. Not because of me, but because the space is safe. Because it's real. Because for the first time, these men get to say things like, I'm scared I'm not enough. And here, you're not alone. Ope. One woman on the board nodded slowly, eyes wet. This grant would let us do more, reach more, open our doors wider. It would mean we're not just checking boxes, we're building futures. For fathers, for sons, for daughters. He stepped back from the mic. His hands trembled a little, but his voice didn't. Thank you. The next day. The phone rang just after dinner. Marcus answered quickly, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Hello? This is Director Evans from the Community Justice Initiative, said the voice. Mr. Brown, we're honored to offer you the Mentorship Development Grant. You were unanimously selected. I know tell day. Marcus exhaled slowly. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. Is liking. You said everything that needed to be said yesterday. Congratulations. Inigid nodded. After he hung up, he turned to Zara, who was peeking around the kitchen door. Was that them? She asked. He nodded. We got it. 23. Her squeal echoed through the apartment as she ran and jumped into his arms. You did it. Daddy. No, he said, hugging her tightly. We did it. Work. Later that week, the story hit local news again, this time with more depth. They called Marcus a rising leader in community-based fatherhood support. They mentioned the mentorship group, the grant, and even quoted part of his speech. Sophie called to celebrate. Maya dropped off cupcakes. Judge Harper sent a handwritten note. When justice is personal, it becomes powerful. Keep building. Redded. I was awed. Marcus tucked the note inside a worn envelope with Zara's old crayon drawings and her first Father's Day card. He didn't need awards. This was enough. But the victory wasn't just professional. It was personal. His confidence was growing. And so was something else, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope. The first Friday of the new year brought with it a promise of something fresh. The snow still clung to the sidewalks, but the sky had softened to a winter blue. Marcus stood outside St. Luke's Church, key in hand, staring at the freshly printed sign now taped to the front door. Father to Father, Mentorship Center, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., founder, Marcus Brown. He reached up and straightened the paper just slightly, then stepped back. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Inside, the room was coming together. The church had cleared space in one of the old classrooms downstairs, musty carpet, flickering lights, and all, but with a few donated chairs, 2 borrowed whiteboards, and a handful of dads ready to listen. It was already more than Marcus had dreamed. Zara sat at one of the small desks in the corner, drawing a welcome sign in bubble letters. Do you think I can be the co-founder? She asked. Not looking up, Marcus grinned. You've been my manager since day one. Baby. Of course. Endest all. She flashed a gap-toothed smile. I'm gonna tell my class on Monday. Teens. You do that. Thank you for watching. As he moved around the room, checking the snack table and adjusting the chairs, a quiet knock sounded at the door. Sophie stepped in, her arms wrapped around a box. Don't worry. I didn't come empty-handed, she said, setting it on the table. Hot cocoa mix, paper cups, and because I know you plastic spoons. He laughed. You think of everything. Is not. She gave him a long look, soft and proud. No, Marcus, you're the one who thinks of everything. I just follow your lead now. Don't crest example. He looked at her, warmth rising in his chest. For a brief moment, neither of them said anything. Then Zara piped up from the corner. Is this the part where you two hug or something? Sophie burst out laughing. Marcus shook his head, smirking. You've been watching too many Hallmark movies. Iversi. Later that evening, Marcus stood at the front of the room as 8 men filed in some familiar faces from the first meetings. Others knew. They came with hesitation, with folded arms and uncertain eyes. But they came. He opened with a question. What's one thing your kid taught you this week? Luis raised his hand. That I can't fix a dollhouse window with duct tape. Not if I want her to stop crying. Laughter rippled through the group. Andre added. My son told me I don't laugh enough. So I made a rule. 1 bad dad joke every night at dinner. I'm 3 for 3. He groans. but he doesn't leave the table anymore. Is really, Mr. Daniel said. I asked my daughter how she knows I love her. She said, because you put your phone down when I talk. That hit me. Marcus nodded, letting their voices fill the space. Then he said, sometimes they know more than we do. He was now back to the Bragas. He moved to the whiteboard and wrote 3 words, show up. Anyway, even when you're tired, even when you're broke, even when you think you're not enough, show up anyway. It is, buddy. They nodded, some more deeply than others. Outside, snow had begun to fall again. Inside, warmth spread not from the space heater humming in the corner, but from the simple fact that no man in that room felt invisible anymore. The next morning, Marcus and Zara visited Maya. She had invited them over for waffles, her Saturday ritual, and Marcus had finally said yes. Zara immediately made herself at home, slipping off her boots and plopping onto the couch like she owned the place. Maya poured coffee and handed Marcus a mug. So, big shot founder now. Huh? He chuckled. Something like that. She tilted her head. How does it feel? He took a sip. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Maya smiled at that. You ever think maybe the worst days led you here? He paused. All the time. Reported. She handed him a second plate, piled high with waffles and strawberries. You deserve this. Marcus. Est. He glanced at Zara, now giggling with Maya's dog and spilling syrup on herself. Yeah, he said quietly. We all do. Art. That night, after putting Zara to bed, Marcus sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker beyond the glass. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Denise. Thank you for not slamming the door on me. He stared at it for a moment, then replied, I won't slam the door, but it'll stay unlocked only if Zara wants it to. You gotta earn that. Art comes to. No reply came, and he didn't expect one, but he'd said what needed to be said. He put the phone down and leaned back, letting his mind wander. To all the jobs he'd worked, to the night he almost gave up, to the first time Zara held his hand at court, whispering, Don't be scared, Daddy. Hated. Avarice. To a church basement filled with men learning to be more than they were yesterday. To hope. Returning in quiet waves. He wasn't trying to be perfect anymore. He was just trying to be present. And that was enough. January moved slowly, each day dragging its heels like a tired old man. The holiday warmth faded, replaced by gray skies and frozen sidewalks. But for Marcus, routine had become something sacred, proof that things were holding steady. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, he unlocked the doors to St. Luke's basement and watched as the folding chairs filled with tired, hopeful men. Every morning, he packed Zara's lunch and walked her to the bus stop. Every night, he tucked her in and whispered the same words. I'm here. Always. But change never waits for an invitation. One Thursday afternoon, as Marcus was closing up the garage, Tony came out from the back, wiping his hands on a towel. Hey, kid, he said, a rare note of seriousness in his voice. Got a letter for you. End quote. He handed over a heavy envelope with an official seal. Marcus's stomach dropped. It was from the family court. He tore it open slowly. His eyes scanned the words. Notice of custody hearing, February 12th. Petitioner, Denise Holloway. Purpose, review of primary custody terms. He stood still, the paper rattling in his hand. Tony looked at him. Bad news? Marcus swallowed. Could be. My ex. She's coming back for custody. Okay. Tony's jaw tightened. After all this time, she thinks she can just show up and take your girl? Marcus didn't answer. He was already in motion. Mind racing. He folded the letter, shoved it into his coat pocket, and left the garage without another word. That night, he didn't tell Zara. He couldn't. Not yet. She was coloring at the table, humming something from music class. He watched her from the kitchen, feeling the walls tighten around him. The stability he had worked so hard to build now trembled like a house on sand. He sat down across from her and forced a smile. How was school? We started learning about Harriet Tubman, she said excitedly. She was brave like you. Dime. He felt a lump rise in his throat. Brave? Huh? She nodded. And she helped people even when she was scared. I was action. He nodded slowly. That's important. We do knows of the Moban. She looked up. Are you scared? He blinked. Startled. Why do you ask? Because your eyes look like they do when the bills come in the mail. Resent. He reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm okay. Baby. Just a long day. 18 days. But inside, fear had taken root. Not of Denise, but of the system, of the courtroom, of the silence that too often drowned out men like him. The next evening, he met with Judge Harper in his office. I got the letter, Marcus said, dropping it onto the desk. Harper read it carefully, then leaned back in his chair. She has a right to request a hearing, but the court will look at history, stability, and most importantly, what Zara wants. Even, Marcus exhaled slowly. She'll say she's changed, that she's clean. Isis did. Harper nodded. Maybe she has, but that doesn't erase what you've done. You've built a life for your daughter. You've shown consistency, care, and responsibility. That weighs heavily in your favor. Marcus leaned forward. I just don't want to lose her. You won't, Harper said firmly. Not if the truth is told clearly. There was a pause. Marcus, Harper continued. If you want, I can testify on your behalf, not as a judge, but as someone who's seen you fight for your child. It is for Creasy. Marcus blinked. You'd do that? Of course. You've earned more than my respect. You've earned my support. The next week, Marcus filed paperwork with a family lawyer free, courtesy of the community center's legal aid fund. He gathered documents, testimonies, school records. He prepared for a fight, one he never asked for but would never walk away from. At home, he began to prepare Zara. Gently. Mom might want to talk to the judge, he said one night. As they sat on the couch, Zara looked up. Why? To ask about seeing you more. Zara's expression darkened. I don't want to live with her. With ITAs. I know, he said, wrapping an arm around her. But it's not just about what we want, it's about showing the judge what makes you safe. Happy. That's why I need you to be honest. Well, she nodded solemnly. Can I say everything I remember? He hesitated. If you're ready. Only if you're ready. Icard. She leaned against him. She used to leave me alone. Daddy. All the time. I'd wait by the window for you. His chest tightened. You never have to lie for me, he said. Just tell your truth. And, she whispered, I will. Days passed like weeks. Marcus kept working, kept mentoring, kept walking Zara to school, packing her lunches, helping with homework, brushing her hair back each night. But every hour carried the same undercurrent. February 12th. When the day finally came, the courthouse stood tall and cold against the gray morning sky. Marcus wore his best shirt and coat. Zara walked beside him, holding his hand tight. Denise was already inside, dressed sharply, her eyes clear and voice calm. Marcus watched her, searching for signs of the woman he used to know, both the good and the broken. The judge was fair, stern. She listened to both sides, asked questions, took notes. Then Zara was called to speak. Marcus's heart nearly stopped as she stood in the witness box. She looked so small under the courtroom lights, but her voice was steady. I love my mom, she said, but I don't feel safe with her. I don't feel seen. My dad is the one who shows up. He makes pancakes and helps with homework and lets me cry when I miss her. I don't want to live anywhere else. We're getting silence. Even Denise's eyes glistened. Afterwards, the judge said she needed time to review everything. A decision would be mailed within 2 weeks. Outside the courthouse, Marcus knelt beside Zara and held her close. I'm proud of you, he whispered. No matter what. She buried her face in his chest. I just want us to stay together, she said. We will, he promised. We fight with truth. That's what wins in the end. But even as he said the words, a quiet fear lingered. Because when the system speaks, you can't always predict what it will say. The waiting was the hardest part. Every time Marcus opened the mailbox, his hands trembled. Every unknown number that flashed on his phone screen made his chest tighten. Every moment that passed without a verdict felt like a weight he carried alone. 2 weeks had never stretched so far. But he kept showing up at work, at the mentorship group, in the kitchen cooking spaghetti while Zara read on the couch. He smiled for her, kept the world spinning. Even as the knot in his stomach refused to loosen, Zara, for her part, handled it like a soldier. She didn't ask questions, didn't cry, didn't even whisper the words court or mom. But Marcus knew Hying. He saw it in the way she clung to her teddy bear again at night, the one she hadn't needed for nearly a year. It was a quiet fear, the kind you don't speak because naming it might make it real. Then one afternoon, the letter came. Marcus pulled it from the mailbox and stood frozen on the steps, staring at the envelope. His heart pounded in his ears. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he walked upstairs, set the envelope on the kitchen table, and sat down across from Zara. "I got the letter," he said. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at it like it might explode. He reached for her hand. "No matter what's in there, you're not alone," he said. "Okay," she nodded. Together, they opened it. The ruling was short, direct. In the matter of custody regarding Zara Holloway, the court finds that primary custody shall remain with Marcus Brown. Supervised visitation may be arranged upon the child's comfort and readiness. This decision reflects the child's expressed wishes, the stability of the current environment, and the petitioner's recent recovery efforts. "We do ours." Marcus reread it twice before the words sank in. Zara was staying. Zara was safe. Zara was home. Zara burst into tears, wrapping her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. Marcus held her tight, not trying to quiet her. She had held in too much for too long. When the tears slowed, she looked up at him. "We're okay now?" He kissed her forehead. "We're more than okay. Baby, we're whole." He didn't caress him. The next evening, the men's group met as usual, but the mood was different. When Marcus entered, they stood and clapped. A few whooped. Even Andre, not known for sentiment, wiped his eyes and said, "Told you you'd win." "Man." "Early?" Marcus smiled, bashful as always. "It wasn't just me. It was truth. That little girl saved me more than I ever saved her." "Telm," Louise chimed in. "And you saved us. All of us. I talk to my daughter now every Sunday. She calls me. Man. That never happened before." "It few too passaginous," Marcus nodded. "That's what this space is for. Not just for us to cry or vent, but to grow. To step up." Divry fived and divided Januaries. He pointed to the whiteboard. Tonight, someone had written a new phrase. "Present fathers build strong futures." 8. He stared at it, letting it settle into his bones. Then he said, "Let's talk about legacy tonight." Ever. That weekend, Zara got invited to a friend's birthday party at a skating rink. Marcus, never one to let her go anywhere alone, tagged along and watched from the sidelines. He sipped burnt coffee from the snack bar and smiled as she stumbled her way around the rink, laughing the whole time. Maya showed up halfway through, bundled in a thick coat and scarf. "You're always 10 minutes early." "Huh?" she teased. He chuckled. "What can I say? Habit." Workencedia. They stood side by side, watching the kids. "I heard about the ruling," she said softly. He nodded. "We made it through." End quote. "You didn't just make it," she said. "You transformed." Tuhid. He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you started out just trying to survive," she said. "But now you're building, teaching, leading. That's not just survival. That's purpose." Du minus sewed. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know, I used to think I was only good for fixing things. Cars, leaky sinks, broken toys. But now, you fix people." She finished. He laughed. I try. Yes. She bumped his shoulder. You do more than try. Was messed. Later. They took Zara for hot chocolate. Maya offered to drive. And Zara sat in the back seat, humming to herself. As they pulled up to the apartment, Maya turned to Marcus. So, what now? He looked out at the snowy sidewalk, then at the front door to the building that had become their haven. Now? He said. Now we keep showing up. That's the only plan I've ever had. I have Fort I. She smiled. Well, don't be surprised if I keep showing up too. Well, he met her eyes. There was something unspoken there, something new. Or maybe something that had always been waiting. Then maybe we're all building something, he said. Together. Amen. Zara leaned forward. Does this mean Mrs. now? Maya's coming to movie night? Both adults laughed. Marcus looked back at her. Only if she brings popcorn. Is Lexi's no deal, Maya said. That night, after Zara was asleep and the apartment had gone quiet, Marcus sat on the couch, staring out at the snowy streetlights. He had fought, lost sleep, faced courts and fear and doubt, but through it all, he had never stopped showing up, and in return, life had shown up for him, one brick at a time. He had rebuilt his world, and it was just getting started. Spring crept into the city like a long-awaited guest, melting the snowdrifts and breathing warmth into the concrete. Marcus noticed it first in the mornings, the way the sun rose a little earlier, the way the birds returned to the fire escape outside their apartment, chirping like they had something urgent to say. Zara noticed it, too. My coat is too hot, she declared one morning, tugging at the zipper as they waited for the school bus. That means it's almost field trip season. Marcus grinned. Is that a thing now? It's always been a thing, she said, serious as ever. You should know. You're a grown-up. 10. He laughed and kissed her forehead before the bus pulled up. Thanks for the reminder, Eisner. She boarded with a wave, and Marcus stood there a moment longer, watching the bus disappear down the block. There was a lightness in the air that hadn't been there for months, a sense of breathing again. At St. Luke's, the mentorship group had outgrown the basement. The church council offered them the community hall upstairs, more space, more light, even a real coffee machine that didn't rattle like it might explode. Marcus stood at the front one evening, looking out over a crowd nearly triple its original size. There were grandfathers now, uncles, younger guys just starting out. Some brought their kids, others brought their wounds. He raised his voice just enough to fill the room. We started with 5 chairs and a folding table, he said. We didn't have funding. We didn't have flyers. We just had stories and heart. 18. Murmurs of agreement filled the space. We're not here to prove we're perfect. We're here to prove we're present. Because that's what our kids need. That's what our communities need. Was Duddy noted. He paused. And now we've got something else. These two otter meant. He gestured toward the bulletin board, where a brand new flyer hung. Father to Father, now officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Support. Train. Uplift. Applause erupted real and loud. Marcus smiled. But inside, something deeper stirred. He hadn't just survived the storm. He'd built shelter from it. That weekend, Marcus took Zara to a community garden cleanup event. Maya had told them about it. Her friend Carla was organizing volunteers, and the garden needed some love after the long winter. Zara wore her favorite overalls and a pink baseball cap. I'm gonna plant sunflowers, she announced, gripping a trowel like it was a sword. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and started clearing debris alongside other volunteers. He loved how these spaces pulled people together, different faces, different stories, working toward the same goal. Maya arrived an hour in, waving as she joined them with a tray of seedlings. Look who decided to show up late, Marcus teased. I'm not late, she said. I'm fashionable. Why? Zara beamed and ran over to help her carry the tray. They worked until their backs ached and their clothes were streaked with dirt. Marcus had forgotten how good it felt to dig, to build, to sweat with purpose. Afterward, they sat on the edge of the garden, sipping lemonade from paper cups. You know, Maya said, brushing dirt from her jeans. A year ago. You were the guy everyone had written off. Thank you for watching, Marcus nodded, including myself. AD. But now, she continued, you've got something people believe in. Something real. Right, Aang? He looked at her. Really looked. You believed first, he said quietly. She didn't reply right away. Then, almost a whisper, she said, that's because I saw the man underneath the fear. The one who wasn't afraid to love loud, to fight for his daughter, to fight for others. It's not beated. Marcus reached out, brushing a smudge of dirt from her cheek. She didn't pull away. Zara, from across the garden, shouted, Hey, you two lovebirds gonna kiss or what? Maya's face flushed. Marcus burst out laughing. Remind me to ground her later, he joked. Remind me to high-five her later, Maya said, smiling. That night, back at the apartment, Zara curled up on the couch with a book while Marcus flipped through a folder filled with new mentorship applications. The phone rang. It was Harper. Marcus, he said, I just wanted to let you know you've been nominated for the City Leadership Award. Community Engagement category. Easy. Marcus blinked. What? Harper chuckled. Yeah. That was my reaction too. But it's happening. And it's well earned. Enerzon. I don't do this for awards, Marcus said, voice low. I know, Harper replied. That's why you're getting one. Man. After they hung up, Marcus sat still for a long time, not because he needed the recognition, but because for the first time in his life, someone had put his name next to the word leader, was nose, and meant it. Later, as he tucked Zara into bed, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes. Daddy? Yeah. Baby, do you think, when I grow up, I can help people like you do? He smiled. I think you already are. We have God again, she yawned, then whispered, You're like a superhero, but with coffee instead of a cape. He laughed softly. Then you're my sidekick. With the stand. No, she said firmly. I'm your partner. Donnie was. Marcus kissed her forehead. That's even better. And, Uzzo. As she drifted off to sleep, Marcus sat by the window, city lights flickering beyond the glass. The man he used to be felt like a ghost now present only as a memory. The man he was becoming, he was building a legacy. One child, one father, one truth at a time. April arrived with crisp mornings and warm afternoons, and the city, once silent under winter's weight, hummed with life again. For Marcus, every sunrise brought purpose. He moved through his days with a quiet confidence, not because things were perfect, but because they were built with his hands, his hope, and his relentless heart. At St. Luke's, the mentorship group had expanded to 2 nights a week and Saturdays for special sessions. Volunteers stepped in to help, retired teachers, community advocates, even a few local business owners, folks who had seen what Marcus was building and wanted to be part of it. What started in a basement had become a cornerstone. One Thursday evening, just as Marcus was locking up the hall, a voice called out from behind. Marcus Brown. He turned. A man in a suit. Early 50s. Square jaw. Official looking. A second man beside him held a clipboard. Yes, Marcus said slowly. We're from the State Family Support Council. You've been recommended for the State Fatherhood Advisory Committee. We'd like to invite you to apply for the open seat. Is Wells and Hevescent? Marcus blinked. Me? The man smiled. We've followed your program. Your name came up more than once from Judge Harper, from the mayor's office, even from a couple of teachers in the district. You've made waves. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, caught off guard. I'm honored. We'll send the formal application, the second man said, handing over a card. Take your time, but we hope you'll consider it. 2. As they walked away, Marcus stood under the streetlight, card in hand, heart racing. Not long ago, he'd been the man no one saw, Now people were asking him to lead not just his neighborhood, but the state. At home, he told Zara while making grilled cheese. "What's a committee?" she asked, munching on apple slices. "It's a group of people who meet to make decisions. Big ones, like how to help families or support kids." Whitbread is on. Zara looked thoughtful. "You should do it." "Well, I'd do this." "You think so?" She nodded. "You always know what to say when someone feels sad. And when you talk, people listen. Even Ms. Maya." With seated, he chuckled. "She's a tough crowd." "Is Crease?" "Yeah. But she smiles at your jokes now." Marcus smiled to himself. Out of the mouths of babes. Over the weekend, he met Maya for coffee. They sat on a park bench, watching kids play tag nearby. The sound of spring filling the air. He handed her the business card. "They want me to join a state committee," he said. Maya raised her eyebrows. "That's huge." "Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready for that." One dimes. She sipped her coffee. "You said the same thing about leading the mentorship group. About court. About speaking at the community center. But you showed up anyway." He looked down. "What if I mess it up?" She nudged him gently. "Then you'll learn and come back better. That's what leadership is. Not perfection. Just presence." He looked at her for a long moment, grateful for the way she always saw the path before he did. "I want to do right by people," he said. "You already are." The video." He reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. She didn't pull away. Neither of them said anything else. They didn't need to. The next mentorship meeting was one of the most powerful yet. A young father named Darnell stood and shared for the first time. "I haven't seen my kid in a year," he said, voice low. "Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to fight. Courts, lawyers, it all felt too big. With my Tepter," he paused, eyes brimming. "But then I came here, and I saw Marcus, and I thought, maybe I can fight. Maybe I'm not too late." Ingena lied. The room was still. Then Luis clapped once, then another man, then another. Marcus stood slowly, his voice steady. "You're not too late," he said. "None of us are. As long as we're breathing, we've got time to show up. And when we show up, we don't just change our kids' lives, we change the world around them." "Is a day." He looked at Darnell. "You're here now. That's what matters." Adiaro. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, Zara asleep down the hall. He stared at the committee application. The line at the bottom asked for a mission statement why he wanted to serve. He picked up his pen. "Because I was the man no one saw. And now I want to make sure no one feels invisible again." He signed it, folded the form, and sealed the envelope. Not because he felt ready, but because he was willing. The next morning, as he walked Zara to the bus stop, she looked up and said, "You're really gonna be on a committee?" "I think so," he said. She smiled. "Then one day, I'll be the president, and you'll be my helper." "I do, man," he laughed. "You've got big plans." "With setters," she nodded. "But I got a good team." "Comin'." The bus pulled up. She climbed aboard, waving through the window. As it drove away, Marcus stood in the sunlight, hands in his pockets, watching the world he'd helped rebuild move forward around him. He hadn't planned to be a leader. He just chose not to give up. And sometimes, that was all the beginning anyone needed. The call came on a Tuesday. Marcus was leaving the garage, hands still streaked with oil from a stubborn engine. When his phone buzzed in his back pocket, he almost ignored it, probably a robocall or a reminder about Zara's upcoming parent-teacher meeting. But something made him check. "Congratulations, Mr. Brown. You've been selected as the newest member of the State Fatherhood Advisory Committee. Our first session begins next month in Albany. Travel and accommodations will be covered. Welcome aboard." For a long moment, Marcus stood on the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, traffic humming around him, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Then, a soft smile broke across his face. he whispered. We did it. Thanks for watching. Not I. We. Because nothing in his journey had ever been done alone. That evening, as he told Zara the news, she jumped up from her seat and shouted. I knew it, he laughed. You did? Huh? You're gonna be in a government meeting. Will you wear a tie? Marcus made a face. Only if they make me was. Tenor, she giggled, climbing into his lap. You're gonna help lots of people now. Right? He hugged her close. That's the plan. Baby. One voice at a time. 18. Zara looked up at him, suddenly serious. I want you to tell them that some kids don't get bedtime stories. And that's not fair. We did Kreisdend. He nodded slowly, his throat tightening. I'll tell them. And that sometimes the good dads don't get picked just 'cause they don't have a house or a big car. I'll tell them that too. Is for. She smiled, satisfied. Then they'll know. The days that followed were a blur of preparation. Marcus bought his first new suit in years, a navy one. Sharp, but modest. Maya helped him choose the tie. Sophie insisted he take her old laptop, upgraded with the latest software and bookmarks for every agency report she thought he should read. You're not going in as some guy from a garage, she said. You're going in as a representative of fathers who've been ignored for decades. Own that. Was not, he tried to, but deep down, that old voice still whispered, you don't belong there. Until one night, sitting in the quiet living room while Zara slept, he pulled out a small box Maya had given him the day he signed the final paperwork. Inside was a brass key. Engraved on it, Room 1A, Scene A, Luke's church, and beneath that, you opened the door for others. Don't forget. Where was Braget? He carried it with him to Albany. The state building was tall and glass-paneled, polished in a way that made Marcus feel underdressed, even in his new suit. But he walked in with his head high, flanked by a growing belief not in his appearance but in his purpose. The committee room was full of professionals, lawyers, policymakers, social workers, and one judge he recognized from an old custody hearing 2 years back. They greeted him politely, some with genuine warmth, others with cautious curiosity. The chairperson, a woman in her 60s with salt and pepper hair and a commanding voice, opened the meeting. We're here to address structural inequities in fatherhood representation, particularly among low-income and minority communities, she said, and we're especially honored to welcome a new voice at the table today. Jester, all eyes turned to Marcus. He stood slowly, buttoned his coat, and stepped forward. My name is Marcus Brown, he began, and I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a mechanic, a mentor, and a father. Quote, he took a breath. I didn't get here because I had the right degrees. I got here because I showed up when it hurt. I fought for my daughter when no one thought I could win. I sat in courtrooms where my clothes spoke louder than my heart. And I found my voice in church basements and school pickup lines. Idea. He looked around the room. Let's stop building programs that look good on paper but fail in real life. Let's talk to the men in the trenches. Let's ask them what they need. And more importantly, let's believe them when they answer. There was silence. Then, slow applause. And then more. The chairperson smiled. Welcome, Mr. Brown. We need your fire here. Oh, yes, no. Back home. News of his appointment spread quickly. The local paper ran a feature, From Wrenches to Reform, the mechanic who's changing fatherhood advocacy. Maya framed the article and hung it in his apartment, right above the coat rack. Sophie, ever the proud friend, sent it to every contact in her phone. And Zara? She carried the article in her backpack and read it aloud during show and tell. That's my daddy, she told her class. He helps kids by helping their dads. When Sozend, but not all attention was welcome. One afternoon, Denise showed up again. She stood at the edge of the playground, arms folded, watching Zara laugh on the swings. Marcus noticed her immediately. He walked over, calm but firm. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said before he could speak. I saw the article. Marcus didn't respond. She continued. You're doing good, Marcus. Real good. And I know I messed up. I know I hurt her. I'm trying to be better now. One have to ignited my thown. He nodded once. Better means consistency. Not pop-ins. If you want to rebuild anything, start by showing up the right way. With Prest, she looked down. Can you help me write a letter to her? He hesitated, then said, if it's honest, yeah, I can help. End quote. She looked up, surprised. I'm not doing it for you. He added, I'm doing it for her. She deserves peace. And so, Denise nodded. Fair enough. Isn't ticketed. That night, as Zara colored on the living room floor, Marcus sat beside her, pen in hand, drafting the outline of a policy proposal for the committee, one that would advocate for parenting classes and legal aid for fathers at risk of losing custody due to poverty, not neglect. Zara looked up. You working again? He nodded. For the dads? Yeah, he said, smiling. For the dads? 9 of Reddit. She went back to her coloring. What are you drawing? He asked. She held it up. It was a picture of a superhero not with a cape, but with a wrench in one hand and a little girl on his shoulders. That's you, she said proudly. And in that moment, no podium, no committee, no article could match the honor in her eyes. The ceremony was held in a historic city hall, the kind with marble staircases and high arched ceilings that made footsteps echo like memory. The state leadership awards were usually quiet affairs, respectable, formal. But this year, the crowd was bigger, more spirited. Because this year, Marcus Brown was among the honorees. He stood backstage, adjusting the collar of his navy suit, the same one he'd worn to Albany, hands slightly trembling despite the warmth in the room. The buzz of the audience reached him even through the thick curtains. His name had been in the paper again, in radio spots, even whispered in barbershops and bus stops. Still, Marcus wasn't thinking about the crowd. He was thinking about his daughter, about the morning she was born, about the night he held her through her fever, about every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every whispered promise, I'm here, always. I was not Tanshin. And now, she was front row in the audience, her small hands folded in her lap, sitting next to Maya and Sophie. When the announcer called his name, Marcus took a breath, stepped onto the stage, and was met with a standing ovation. He approached the microphone slowly, his face calm but his heart hammering in his chest. He looked out over the audience. Senators, advocates, community leaders, ordinary families, his people. He didn't speak from notes. My name is Marcus Brown, he began, voice steady, and I used to believe I wasn't meant to be heard. I thought my past, my paycheck, my zip code meant my voice didn't matter. A hush fell over the room, but I was wrong. I learned something the hard way. Truth doesn't care how much you earn. Love doesn't come with credentials. And fatherhood, real fatherhood, is the most radical, powerful kind of leadership there is. Where? He paused, scanning the room until his eyes found Zara. She gave a tiny thumbs up. A smile tugged at his lips. I'm not here today because I did everything right. I'm here because I refused to walk away. From my daughter, from my community, from myself. Azan. Applause echoed across the chamber. He nodded, deeply moved. This award is for every dad who showed up when no one expected him to unfile. For every man who chose to listen, to grow, to stay even when the world told him he wasn't enough. It's styled. He stepped back from the mic, voice soft now. This is for Zara, my reason, my light. 2340 Selv. The audience rose to its feet again, and as he stepped off stage, he felt something shift deep inside. Not pride, not accomplishment, but peace. After the ceremony, reporters crowded him, politicians shook his hand, community organizers asked for meetings, advice, partnerships. A publishing agent even handed him a card, mumbling something about turning his story into a book. But Marcus's eyes stayed on his daughter. Zara ran to him, arms flung wide. He knelt down to catch her. You did it. Daddy, she beamed. He laughed. We did it. She held up the medal he'd received. Can I wear it to school tomorrow? Only if you promise not to trade it for fruit snacks. It's not. Deal. Wearing. Behind them. Maya smiled. She stepped closer, resting a hand gently on Marcus's arm. Your voice shook the room, she said. He looked at her, heart full, because it carried all of you with it. Oh, she leaned in, whispering, I'm proud of you, not just for what you said, for the man you've become. One dows. He took her hand, still becoming. Wary doe, they stood like that, surrounded by applause and flashbulbs and the low hum of possibility. But none of it mattered more than the two hands he held, one calloused and weathered, the other, small and innocent. Both were home. Months passed. The nonprofit grew. The committee passed new recommendations, influenced by Marcus's personal story and data collected from grassroots fathers across the state. Legal aid funding increased. Community centers across the state began hosting Father's Corner, nights safe spaces modeled after Marcus's original group at St. Luke's. He returned to speak at St. Luke's often, never from a pedestal, always from a folding chair. And every time, he opened the door with the same brass key. Maya gave him room 1A, because no matter how far he'd come, he never wanted to forget where it began. One warm summer night, Marcus sat on the fire escape. Zara curled up beside him in her pajamas. They watched stars blink above the city skyline. Do you miss the old days? She asked. He glanced at her. Which ones? When it was just us? No interviews. No committees. No fancy dinners with people in suits. It is Steve Min, he smiled. I miss the quiet, but not the fear. Back then, I didn't know if I'd get to keep you. Now, I know I'll never let you go. Ex-speasing. She rested her head on his shoulder. I'm glad you didn't give up. He whispered. Me too. It's so. They sat there a while longer. Father and daughter, wrapped in the silence of a hard-earned peace. Below them, the city thrummed on, lights twinkling like a promise. And above, the stars whispered what Marcus already knew. Real heroes don't wear capes. They show up. They listen. They stay. And that, more than anything, changes the world. The story of Marcus Brown teaches us that true strength lies not in perfection, but in persistence. It reminds us that showing up, especially when it's hard, is an act of courage that changes lives. Marcus didn't need wealth or status to make a difference. He needed heart, commitment, and the willingness to grow. In a world that often overlooks quiet heroes, his journey proves that love, presence, and integrity are the most powerful forces we have to rebuild broken systems and broken lives.